a week ago it was 27 degrees centigrade here, and now it's snowing. I'm driving home from doing my radio show, so it is pretty late. In fact, it's just gone midnight, and yeah, we have snow. Hasn't really settled on the ground yet, but it looks like it's starting to.
The time has come, even though, as you will have seen, it's pretty cold here at the moment. It hasn't snowed on our property, but it wasn't far off. Anyway, I am heading up the hill to do some wood processing. As I say, putting it off because it's not my favourite task, but it has to be done for a variety of reasons. So I'm heading up there for the first time since we've got back. I'm not sure what I'll find, but couldn't be much worse than when we went away, even with all of that wind. Let's go and see. As you will have seen in last week's video, since I last drove the Brumby, Will's come up with this fix around for a problem which occurred with some sort of component, fuel pump or something, I don't know. So we'll see how this goes. I hope I don't break it, and I hope that the Brumby gets me up the hill and back down again, because if it can't, if I'm stranded with a load of wood, that'll be really irritating. Anyway, let's see how this goes. Well, we made it up. So far so good. As you would have noticed, the odd branch, but no fallen trees over any part of the fire break, so that's handy. And now I can resume my work clearing the dead trees from up here. Where's my load? I've left it a little bit smaller than I normally would because I'm down at the creek walk, and I'm going to bring up that pomaderris that I processed whilst we were parted, off screen as it were. Just to update that the work they did on the Husqvarna was pretty decent, and I haven't had the problem that I've had with it before it went for a service with the engine brake, the chain brake coming on during use. I thought I'd update you on that because you know, the Husqvarna battery chainsaw isn't a cheap piece of equipment, and if you're considering getting one, I want to be honest about the pros and cons that I have found using it. So con, it's not working. Pro, it was fixed pretty easily. Yes, anyway, so I'm going to go and get the pomaderris, and then I will add it to this, and then I will take it up to the wood store and I will process it, and then hopefully that'll be that part of my day done. We're back up the hill because I'm sneaking in an additional wood processing day this week in order to get that bay that I'm working on as full as quickly as possible. But I thought that this time, I often talk about coming up and processing the woods, but we haven't actually looked up in the woods for a little while, so I thought I'd show you about and see, so that you can see what I'm up to up here and what I'm up against and what I'm facing. So it's over to my right, so let's go and take a look. These are the woods behind the house, which are by far and away the most extensive part of woodland we have. The creek walk is much smaller by comparison, and what I've been doing up here is taking out the trees that died in the bushfire, and then I'll come back once I've done that and take out the trees which pretty much died during the bushfire, but haven't quite. So this is what it looks like up here. A lot of this scrubby stuff wasn't here before the bushfire. It was very much just trees. So in some respects this is nice because it adds to the interest up here, but in other respects it's not nice because now we've got much more flammable material at ground level. So pros and cons. But in terms of the trees, it more or less always looked like this. I think that this land had been previously cleared, so none of these trees are particularly old, or at least very, very few of them, and they've all grown up over the last 20, 30, 40 years in an unmanaged way, which is why there's just such a density of them. But mostly they're very, very small trees because of that density. So there's not a lot of light which gets down here. So they tend to grow very leggy, very tall, very thin, with all the leaves right at the top. So my hope by doing this is that not only am I generating useful firewood, but also I'm slightly thinning the canopy, which will allow some of these trees to start to get bigger, more mature. But also maybe I'll start to get a greater variety of plants on the forest floor, and maybe even a greater variety of shrubs and trees. I've come through the thicket of acacia trees which have sprung up. I'm now basically the other side of that, which is a relief because working in that was absolutely appalling. And this, I think, is the this is the Nan walk that I showed you a couple of vlogs ago, well, a few now. So this is where we're at. I'm pushing my way up to the top, but you can see there's such a jumble of trees. They're mostly small. They're sometimes tumbles over. It's a bit jungle-like up here. But so I just saw a swamp wallaby. But we're slowly getting there, and one day it'll be lovely.
Listening to her music all these years later says it all, doesn't it? And these performances are stunning. So here's one of them, Columba Aspects.
Well, enough of that nonsense. It's time to crack on with the day. And this morning what I'm focusing on, because I'm trying to take things a little easier this weekend, I am going to be working on the doughnut bed. I'm just coming down to the potting shed to collect the equipment that I'm going to need, which is pretty minimal. Basically this. Since we got back from the UK, I've noticed the weeds are returning apace onto both the flower beds actually, so I'm going to try and keep on top of them. And also I've got a compost bin that I need to empty, and I don't like to empty the compost on top of weeds, so I'm heading over there now, and I'm going to do what I can to tidy it up, empty the compost bin, spread the compost. Later in the week I'll be going to town to get some manure to fertilise the beds. I like to do it at this time of year so that it's got time to sort of settle in, but also trap the moisture which may be generated between now and summer. So a bit of a gardeny morning, but as I say, sort of nice and chill. I think Will and I have been pretty busy and life's been pretty hectic, so you may notice like the next few and the previous vlog are a bit more chill than normal. We're not really out and about doing much, but we're gearing up for quite a busy, potentially end of the year, so it's all good. This is what I'm looking at. It's not so bad, and some of this is actually plants that are sprouting up, which I will keep. But as you can see, probably better to keep on top of it whilst I can than let it get all out of hand. Hopefully this won't take me too long. Stage 1 is complete, and I have ended up with a barrow's full of weeds and a bit of soil. That's not bad actually. When I did it last time before we went away, about 5-6 weeks ago at this point, I think I ended up with 2 barrow loads, so it's getting better. The next thing I want to do is move this plant. I had probably wanted to do it a bit before now, but I've left it unfortunately till now, so fingers crossed the plant survives. But I want to sort of move it from here to sort of here, so that it's not so abutting this other plant. They're a bit more evenly spaced, the sort of, you know, shrubby permanenty plants. So I'll be doing that next. Then I will be emptying the compost bin and spreading that around. And then after that, I think I might either take a quick break for some lunch or start stage 1 of my latest project that I decided upon only in the last few days. Well, I'd known that I wanted to do it for a while, but I've decided to embark upon it only very recently. So when I get to it, I will talk you through it and explain my thought processes. Plant is moved and watered, and I've swapped the barrow of weeds for a barrow of compost. Probably got one more to bring up, and then that bin's empty. So what I'm going to do now is just scatter this around, help keep the soil nice and enriched. Operation Doughnut Bed is complete for this morning. I just spread all that compost about and given it a rake in. The next stage on this project will be, once I've got the manure, I'll then do something similar with the manure, spread it out, I think. In the past I've built doughnut rings around the plants to help keep the moisture close to them. But I think they're also sort of sufficiently big now that they don't really need that sort of help. So I'll just generally fertilise the soil and they'll vicariously benefit from that. Not today, but at some point in the near future I've got to do the same with the original flower bed. A lot of what you can see is actually plants popping up rather than weeds, so it shouldn't take too long. But there's only so much of that I can take in a day, and I've reached my limit. But I'm very pleased with how that's looking. I think now I am actually going to take a break for a spot of lunch, and then after that I will come back, as discussed previously, and show you what my next project is going to be. So here we are at the back of the house, just for context. The back door's there, and we come out here to feed the birds, hence that bare patch. But for a while now, for quite a number of years, what I've wanted to do here is dig this soil out and have basically a small kitchen garden here. So the place where we grow essentially our herbs, but also some spring, summer, autumn, winter salady crops. And my conception of it is that I'll dig down to ground level, we'll put gravel on the base, we'll have a small retaining wall because I don't want to get rid of the grapevines, and then we'll have raised beds within that. So I'm thinking 3, essentially a long thin one, a sort of more squarishy one, and then a long thin one. And we'll have a combination, as I say, of sort of herbs and salady crops. And in the square one, I was going to dedicate that entirely to different types of mint. I think it's a good idea to keep mint separate, and I love mint, but mint comes in all sorts of different guises. And so I thought just a mint one, and then maybe a herb one, and then maybe a salady one, or maybe jumbled up. I don't know. So the retaining wall obviously isn't going to be that high. I don't know sort of what the difference is between ground level and where I plan to dig, which is about here. But maybe a foot, maybe a bit more. I don't really know. So I'm thinking of maybe coming to about here. You can maybe see a sort of row of stones. They're not straight, but I'm thinking maybe sort of stopping here, leaving this, as I say, for the grapevines and for things like the daffodils and other spring stuff that I'm putting there, and the spring bulbs. But all of this to come out to ground level. As I say, I've sort of been putting it off because it's not the world's biggest amount of soil to move, but I know it's going to be jolly difficult, and it is full of stones, and some of them are big, and obviously as I get up to there it's also full of tree roots. In terms of the beds themselves, I'm sort of thinking they'll correspond with the first and last columns of the house, because it may be necessary to put some sort of cage around this whole area to stop the birds. And maybe I'm thinking if it was within the bounds of the house footprint, that might look more aesthetically pleasing and also potentially be easier to build the cage. But I want to start here just so that it's sort of nicely contoured. It isn't just like a random starts there. But maybe I'll change my mind about that. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to go about it, but I'm going to give it a little bit of thought, and then I will start. So either I'm going to start here, or if I change my mind when I think about it, I'll start here. Now my idea is, because I've been finding the concept of this project a bit daunting, that I will do 1 barrow a day. So I'll commit myself to shifting 1 barrow of soil per day, and I'll just keep going until it's done. The reason I'm doing it like that is because I'm very much a starter finisher. So if I start a project, I can't rest until it's finished. But I just can't allow myself to get too distracted by this one project, which is very much a personal project of my own. So I've decided 1 barrow a day, and it'll take as long as it takes. If it takes 2 years, it takes 2 years. If it takes a month, it takes a month. But we'll find out. So don't expect anything to happen too soon, but I will sort of keep you updated. And as I say, it'll take as long as it takes, and then eventually I hope I'll have a nice thing to look out on from the back of the house when I'm doing the washing up. But also we're starting to lay the foundations for a more productive garden in terms of the food that we're able to extract from it ourselves. So I've just had a bath because my busy day is done, and I am settling down for the night to listen to Will on the radio.
Suspense.
You've done what, monkey?
Drama.
Oh, it's going to be a disaster!
And a touch of humour.
Gus got a stitch. It's food poisoning. I'm just sick.
In REG-FM's new radio serial, There's No Place Like Home. Join the folk of Coochie Creek as they laugh,
He's forgotten my name.
cry,
Oh, that's so sad.
and journey through life.
He has to drink cooking sherry.
There's No Place Like Home. 7 p.m. Saturdays on REG-FM.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Will's Party Time on REG FM.
And on that bombshell, I think I will call it a night. See you later. Bye now.